All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Lee Fortin, and I'm the Director of Marketing for DataVizion. We're going to go ahead and get this started. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today to learn more about Aruba ClearPass. We're excited to have Mat Lehn, an enterprise engineer with DataVizion, host the webinar today. Matt holds several of Aruba's highest certifications and is a leading expert in ClearPass. Not only does he hold the top certifications, he's been an essential part of implementing ClearPass to businesses of all sizes across the US. As he goes through the presentation, we invite you to definitely give your questions on the chat screen. Matt will try to answer all your questions at the end of the presentation, and if not, we'll be able to reach out to you personally to get those questions answered. So again, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Matt, I'll hand it off to you.
Sounds great. Thanks everyone for joining. Good morning. Before we get started, as Lee mentioned, definitely send out your questions. I will be answering them. If we don't by chance get to them, I will be sure to reach out personally to get everything answered. So looks like we got a pretty good attendance today, and very excited for what we have to show. So for today's session, we will be discussing the ClearPass Policy Manager solution. What we're going to be talking about is for how the ClearPass Policy Manager solution, how it can provide you the visibility, management, and control of everything that plugs into your wired and wireless network. Some interesting stats. So not only does a company have to worry about all the desktops and laptops, but by 2020, it's expected to have over 20.8 billion IoT or Internet of Things devices on the network. So with that comes a lot of considerations. So having a company that's handling the wireless as well as the wired network, in order to get that visibility into what's plugging into your network, understanding from a device profiling standpoint of, hey, is this a laptop, a Windows 10, what operating system, to also from a hospital standpoint, is this a medical device, is it a heart pump, is it anywhere between MacBooks to iPads, iPhones, and really getting a grasp for what's plugging in as well as connecting wirelessly to your network. So not only talking about what's plugging in, but also getting identity based of who is connecting behind that device. So if we're taking a school, for instance, hey, I'm an IT admin, I should have access to everything. Or if I'm a staff or student, should I only have access to these folder permissions or these printers or certain aspects? So understanding who's behind that device can also go a long ways. It's also getting more popular for multi-factor authentication. So getting that, okay, not only, do we have these corporate assets and, these, you're hearing about all these security breaches these days, but getting that dual factor authentication of having a key fob or a text message can really secure down your network as well. So getting the, from a NAC standpoint, getting the differentiated access. So in our webinar today, you're probably going to hear the word dynamic segmentation quite a bit. So, getting you that granular control of based off of the device that's being plugged in, the user behind that, what level of access should that user and or device have to your network. So with the growing IT industry, a lot of BYOD or bring your own devices are coming in, and people are wanting access, so developing company policies of, what that device should get access to. And then also doing health checks and being able to secure that device onto the network. So other considerations that are key as we're dealing with a lot of devices, and hey, might not only just have one location but multiple, is the scalability. How easily can we put a solution in place at the head corporate office, but then, hey, the company is growing rapidly, and not have to re-architecture, but to just keep adding to a product. Third-party integration is also a big key, as a lot of, just a device connecting to a network that touches a lot of different products. So also from communication to the Aruba controllers, to your firewalls, and even like ServiceNow ticketing, to how you can get more proactive into the communication. So the biggest thing when we start talking about ClearPass Policy Manager is it makes policy decisions. So getting a workflow that makes sense to keep it simple. So what I'm going to show you this screen. This is going to be what we're going to talk about a lot with the ClearPass and the ecosystem, but really ClearPass Policy Manager, it's an authentication server, but it can also do a lot more. It's really the central point when we're starting to talk about the communication to your switching, to your wireless, to your third-party integrations. One of the biggest key things to note about ClearPass is it is not a rip and replace type of solution. It's made to integrate into what you have. So we are a multi-vendor product. As you can see on this screen, we handle a lot, Aruba, of course, but integrating with Juniper and Cisco, and then from your third-party integrations to Palo Alto and the Checkpoint, and even your multi-authentication such as Duo, even MDM solutions such as Mobile Iron and AirWatch. All of this ecosystem, if you will, ClearPass is really that central point, and we're going to dive into that. So in order to, really expand on, how ClearPass can help you, what I want to do is just talk about what ClearPass has to offer, what's inside of the product. So at its core, it's a radius and a TACAC server. So what that means is this is a product that can, as I mentioned, a multi-vendor, but from a radius standpoint, we can do all of your wired and wireless authentications to it. It also handles TACACs. So if you guys want to set up ClearPass to your to any of your logins, to like your Aruba, any controllers, your switching, anything that supports the radius and TACACs protocols, we can point this product at it. Basically, what we're doing behind the scenes is we're passing back VSAs, or vendor-specific attributes. And so with that is we're doing, industry standards of what does that product need that I need to pass back in order to either give me that level of access, or sending back a downloadable access control list, and being able to, from a TACACs perspective, even provide me if I need read-only, or if I have administrator access and whatnot. So where we're able to make a lot of these determinations is ClearPass integrates into Active Directory, where we can then, based off of who you are, a lot of times we do based off of memberships. So if I'm part of the IT group, I will, pass back full level of access, or I'm going to, put you into this VLAN, or put you into this role, which then has access control list tied around that. So I have individual slides that are really going to dive into what this product does based off this screen, and we may jump back to this. So ClearPass can be, we sell a hardware appliance or virtual. Virtual is the most common type of deployment, but if you're not a VMware or Hyper-V shop, we certainly have a hardware appliance to handle that. So very scalable solution. And what we mean by that is we can cluster multiple boxes together. And so if we have, a lot of different locations, if we need local survivability, we'll go ahead and either put a virtual machine or a hardware appliance at that location, and all of the boxes are active at all times. So you never have to worry about active passive, it's hey, if we need to load balance or if a box were to go off the line, we can certainly send those authentications to these appliances. One of the key features of ClearPass, which is really where this product expands, is being ClearPass Policy Manager. It's making policy decisions. But before we can make a policy decision of either who you are or what type of devices there are, we need to understand what's in your network. So one of the key features is the endpoint profiler. So as you can see on this screen here, we have a huge list of different types of devices. So access points, computers, door controllers, printers, switches, UPSs. And so what this allows us to do is understanding, getting the information of what this device is. We can then make a policy decision of how we treat that on the network. So there's several different ways that we get this information. One of the most common ways is adding ClearPass as an IP address helper, which will then send the DHCP request to ClearPass, but it will never respond. But within that DHCP request is a lot of great information to profile the type of device it is. So if you don't have DHCP set up in the network, or it's not throughout, so maybe you have a lot of static printers, a lot of other information we can collect is through SNMP of the switches, as well as if we're presenting any type of captive portal page based off of the browser that device is using, we can also understand what that is. So very powerful product. So a lot of times when we go to deploy, a lot of companies don't even know what they have inside of their networks. So we'll go ahead and we'll stand up ClearPass. We'll get this profiling thing enabled so that we can understand, hey, I'm seeing a lot of Apple iOS devices, or we can even talk about, hey, I'm seeing a Windows XP computer. That's no longer supported. It's not patched. Do you guys, from a business standpoint, want to say that XP should not be allowed onto the network? ClearPass also has MDM integration capabilities. So from a business standpoint, or schools are very popular from an MDM standpoint of managing, a bunch of iPads. As you can see on this section here, we support natively a lot of your top brands. So Jamf is very popular. Mobile Iron, I'm starting to typically what we've been seeing most is Jamf, and also which is not in this list but it is supported, is Intune. So when we talk about MDM integration, so what does that mean? As you can see here on the right, when we integrate into an MDM solution, we're keeping a database of all these devices. So if you guys have a bunch of corporate assets, such as mobile phones that you hand out to employees, what would be a very common approach is that we do an MDM integration, which then can pull all of this information out of that product into ClearPass. And so when that device authenticates, I know the serial number. I know who owns that device. Another very common one is if it's compromised. So that MDM solution can tell if it's been jailbroken. And if that detects that it's jailbroken, it would set that, hey, this has been true. So on my side, I would set a policy that the MDM must be enabled, maybe that it's last checked in within 48 hours, so that that it's from a healthy standpoint, it's not been lost or stolen, that it's enabled, as well as not compromised. So we're constantly syncing to this database. You can adjust that variable of how often that talks. By default, it's 60 minutes, but a lot of people will kick that down to 5 or 10, just to keep pulling this and have very accurate information. So, and if your MDM solution is not in this list, we also have a generic section here, which we've had to do a couple times for kind of odds and ends types of solutions. But for the most part, you should be in here. The other thing that ClearPass allows us to do, as we have a lot of wired and wireless types of devices, is we get detailed reporting. So understanding how many authentications, one of the most common reports is the type of endpoints that we have. So just really getting a feel for what's inside of your network, how many do I have, what have I seen, and that may help us adjust some more policy decisions, or just give you guys a, kind of an inventory report, if you will, of things to monitor. ClearPass can also, we can send accounting information to ClearPass as well. So we can even understand utilization and bandwidth, and how long that device has been on the network. So maybe you guys want to start restricting down, your guest network of, hey, no one, if you hit this certain threshold, take an action, maybe kick that user off, maybe switch their role, or handle them differently on the network. So lots of great information, and this is everything that I'm showing you here. It's all one product. It's one either virtual or one appliance that gives you this visibility into the network. So along with not only the detailed reporting, but we have what's called the access tracker. So the access tracker, if you guys have ever deployed a NPS, Windows server for NPS to handle radius, it can be very gruesome to not only find a client that authenticated, but troubleshooting is another key factor. So the access tracker, when we're talking about ClearPass, this is the form that we the section of the product that we go into 90% of the time for any troubleshooting. So I can easily filter based off of the username, the MAC address, the service that it may have hit, to narrow in on that user. So I have some more. My next slide here is going to get into what type of visibility that gives me in, but I just wanted to jump to the cluster status here. We have several boxes here inside the cluster, and we can, within this one cluster, it syncs the entire database. So from a management perspective, we log into one interface, which would direct us to the publisher. This is the guy who handles the database. And then all of the subscribers sync to the publisher. So syncs all configuration. If I were to lose the publisher, I could easily promote one of these other boxes to handle that database, and all of my information is there. So from a redundancy standpoint, whether I lose a box, if it dies, if it's a hardware, maybe if it dies, lots of redundancy aspects around that. And very easy to deploy, very easy to add back in, and also scale out as far as how many boxes. You can deploy a lot of boxes inside of a single cluster. Last I've checked from Aruba, the most I've seen is about 15, but it can certainly scale out a lot bigger than that. So inside of the access tracker, if we were to pick on a user here, so we're starting to see being able to identify the user. So if we want to do like a search based off of the MAC address, here is a screenshot of me clicking into one of those users. So I can see that it's an Apple Mac, Intel. Here's the controller that it authenticated against. Here's the authentication method, the source that it authenticated against. And as I mentioned, ClearPass can integrate into Active Directory. If you're a very large company and maybe you have multiple domains, we can also support that as well. So you're not limited, or even in kind of a maybe kind of a multi-business unit of maybe you're supporting different companies but want a single authentication server, radius server, we can handle that as well. So based off of the policy decision, it's all based off of who you are, going through our services to understand, okay, did I connect on the wireless or the wired, and then what authentication method, and then based off of my memberships into Active Directory is the most common way to determine what level of access I give you to that network. So here I picked on our university that this is a student, they got onto to their Jayhawk wireless network, but we can also do a lot more of determining what VLAN as well as what access they get to the network. I selected one that had an issue, so the alerts tab. Here we can see that the user authentication failed. So unlike an NPS server where you're really filtering through and trying to figure out why that user authenticated, this gets to be pretty black and white of, hey, this user put in the wrong password, or this account is locked out. So it's not just going to throw you some weird error code that you have to decipher and look up in a troubleshooting guide. It's going to tell you. So what this product allows you to do is to simplify troubleshooting, that you log into one product for the entire company, do that filter on, find that user, and then you can easily understand what issues that is occurring, as well as even where they're located. Another big thing that ClearPass has to offer is what we call a guest captive portal screen. So this is a splash page, just like if you're to go to a hotel or sometimes a coffee shop. This guest registration process, there's a web server built into ClearPass, and we are able to collect information based off of this captive portal to then tie to that user, so that if you're just on a purely open network, all I'm going to see is a MAC address and an IP address. This is going to allow us to put more information to that MAC address and that IP address of that user. So I'm collecting your name, maybe your phone number and email address. This is very customizable to the way that you guys would like to see it. So we can make your own fields. There's a lot of pre-populated fields that you can do. And it's also mobile friendly. So depending on if I'm on an iPhone or an iPad, it's going to fit to that screen correctly. So you don't have to scroll up and scroll down to hit an I accept button. So some of the most common ways to deploy on this guest piece is we can do that self-registration piece, which was my previous screen. We also, what's getting pretty popular is the sponsored guest access. So the way that sponsored guest access works is that we can put in the name or an email address of an employee. We can then do an LDAP lookup on the back end, but what that's going to do is that's going to send, so let's say if I'm the sponsor, someone's going to send an email to me and I'm going to say, hey, it's going to say Dustin's here to see you. Do you approve him to be on the network? And if I, accept that, then I can pass back I can send him a text message, or we can automatically send him an email saying, hey, you're allowed on, go ahead and connect. And so really the whole idea behind the sponsored guest access is holding somebody accountable for why that user's there, right? So that just not anybody, someone sitting in the parking lot can connect and just get onto your network. Hey, now they have a business case of why they're on there. You can also handle, how long that account is active for. We also have another feature called MAC caching. So what that means is that when I connect to the guest network, that MAC caching variable is how long I can be, if I go to lunch or, how long I'm away from the network and come back and not have to see that captive portal page. So a lot of times we'll do a 12-hour MAC caching variable that, hey, I've signed in to the registration page, I leave, I go to lunch, I come back. Once I come back, that authentication is going to hit ClearPass and it's going to note that, hey, I've already been seen, I'm on the network. And lots of customization around that. So it's variables we get to help you design when we and approve upon. From a university standpoint, we can do pre-registration or like device registration. So as we're presenting a captive portal page, there are some devices that just don't support it yet. So, like your Fire TV sticks and whatnot, that allows you to do a captive portal. So, if you take that to a hotel or whatnot, you can get through. But, maybe this is an Xbox, or maybe it's a printer that just needs to get onto the guest network. We can also pre-register, as well as that can also be used for sponsored guest access, that if you have a large group coming in the door, we can just collect their email address, send them a pre-approval of, hey, when you get here, your account's ready to go. Here's the SSID you connect to, here's your credentials, here is how long your account is active for. And we also have third-party integrations, a lot of API hooks. So if you already have if we already have some other type of database or whatnot that we either need to pull information from or look at, we can do so. So with ClearPass being a authentication server, we have getting that authentication request, we can then send that identity of that information up to your firewalls. So some of the two main firewalls that we highly support, Checkpoint, as well as Palo Alto. Palo Alto is the #1 product that Aruba partners with, and full communication. So what does that mean to you guys if you were to have Palo Alto or Fortinet and Checkpoint, right? So we can, being the authentication server, we're getting that, we're kind of that first responder, right? So if you're connecting to an 802.1x network, that user is either putting in a username and password. I'm then going to send that up to the Palo Alto. Maybe it already knows about that user, but if not, I'm sending that information up, that if you guys have any other type of tags or other type of control around user IDs, that we're seamlessly sharing that information. So as you can see, the source IP, the username, user role, and then even posture health status, which I'll get into here in a second. So when we're talking about ClearPass, some of the key advantages of the product is it's a multi-vendor platform. So again, it's not a rip and replace solution. We do a lot of wired and wireless implementations. Aruba works, of course, being its own type of vendor there. We have a lot more feature sets we can offer, but we do a ton of Cisco deployments, both wired and wirelessly as well. Highly scalable. So as I was talking about, from the clustering capability, is we don't have to re-architecture anything. We can, hey, I've either bought another business, or have another remote site we're spinning up, if needed. From depending on from a network standpoint of the architecture of that is, do we need to deploy another one? If so, hey, just spin that up, add it to the cluster. It's automatically going to sync all the configuration, and so easily scalable out. It's a single platform, so giving us the policy management decisions and enforcement. It's got the web server in it, so the guest access, device profiling and onboarding, so we can easily get those BYOD devices or guests coming in the door. And what this product really does is, nowadays it's all about the self-service of not having to create an IT ticket to allow somebody out of the network. So what we're doing there is we're improving the user experience. Hey, I can seamlessly, and kind of effortlessly, by myself, connect to this network, get securely onto it, and get to the resources I need to. And then the visibility of all the devices, user and location. So before I jump to, I want to just jump right back to this screen here. A couple other things from the We can also, within this product, we have a expandable application called OnGuard, where this can do health checks. So what this would do is it can be an agent or an agentless installation on a system. And what that's going to do is we could set up policies to say, hey, is my antivirus software enabled? Or is there a USB plugged in? Is the firewall enabled? Do I have the latest Windows updates or a certain patch? We can integrate into SCCM to also provide us information about how your guys' patch management is and to make sure that we're good. So from this health check would basically mean that if I do detect that you're what we would say our options are either unknown, healthy, or quarantine. If I do detect a violation, I'd put you into a quarantine aspect, which would give you just enough access to the network to remediate yourself. So maybe that's doing a Windows update or enabling your firewall, but we can make sure that we're compliant for getting onto the network. And then we have this, what we call onboard. It's a way for us to push certificates to BYOD devices and to securely get you onto the network there. So with that, what I'm going to do is jump over. We have a very cool presentation that I have Dustin Hopkins on the line. He's an Aruba SE. And we're going to demonstrate, really put, there's a lot of information about what ClearPass can do, make policy decisions, and he's going to talk with us about the dynamic segmentation and really put this in a visual that everyone can understand.
Hey, Matt, thanks. Hey, everybody, thanks for joining. As Matt mentioned, we talk about colorless ports, we talk about dynamic segmentation, and what does that mean? It means that ClearPass is on the back end, profiling a device, applying a role to that device, and that role can consist of ACLs, VLANs, etc. And we talk about colorless ports to simplify the deployment and security of your wired and wireless network. And what we're going to do today is kind of visualize what is a colorless port. So as you can see, this is just the front end of my switch that I have here in my lab. So I'm going to move some things around, so I apologize if there's any background noise. But as you can see, we're using these colors to really assign a user role. Okay, so we've got down at the bottom left there just a handful of roles that we've created for our lab purposes here. But you can see, VoIP, headless device, Apple TVs, any number of things that would come onto your network on a regular basis. And as you can see, right now, Matt is hovering over port 7 there, and you can see that it's an Apple TV. What permissions does it have? It's a multimedia device. That's what we call our permissions for this guy, and whatever it is that you want to have that guy do, we can do, right? So right now, this guy is on VLAN 3000, okay? But when I want to move a device and secure my network, I don't want to have to go and configure a port for a VoIP phone or an Apple TV or a camera. So with ClearPass on the back end and the Aruba switching, we can do this, okay? So right now we've got the Apple TV on port 7. I'm gonna move that port, so again, excuse the background noise. I'm gonna swing it over to port 5. I plug that guy in, boom. That role follows it wherever it goes on the network, okay? That's wired, that's wireless, it doesn't matter. If I plugged in one of my access points, it would come up, ClearPass would profile it, it would see that it's an Aruba access point, and we apply that infrastructure role and give it, say, VLAN 3001, right? So no matter where I go, we're doing dynamic segmentation. So we're segmenting the network dynamically to easily deploy and secure your network. Now, Matt, if you would hover over port 3 there, the other thing that's cool is I've got a VoIP phone on my network, okay? Well, there's a port behind it. Well, with ClearPass and with the Aruba switching products, I can apply multiple roles to a single port. In this instant, I've limited it to 10. So even if somebody came in and maliciously plugged in a Netgear router and plugged in an IoT device or something nefarious behind it, I still get that authentication request and I still have a role to apply to that guy. Maybe it's just, hey, kick it out to the internet if I don't know what it is. Maybe it's quarantine it. As Matt mentioned, we can do that. So the power of ClearPass in this demo is just simply to visualize what we're talking about. As Matt mentioned, there's a lot of stuff here, right? A lot of stuff to unpackage, but this right here is simply showing you how that role is following the user or device anywhere you go onto the network. Okay?
Perfect.
So
then,
go ahead, Matt.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I was just going to say, if you want to move the phone to another port, just or even to port, I think we had Apple TV on port 8.
Okay. Let's swing the phone over. Give me 1 second here. Pull it out. Put it in port 7, where it was before. So you see this guy comes up in a green status as it starts to authenticate. The phone is booting up now. After the boot here, we'll see its authentication status change.
And as there it goes.
There we go. Now that VoIP role has followed it to the same port that we previously had the Apple TV on, and now we again see that authentication from the device that's plugged into the back of the phone.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks, Dustin. So, and again, we'll have time for questions here, but this is, really what ClearPass is all about, a single product that gives us that visibility and control, as Dustin was mentioning, that colorless port and what Aruba's terminology for the, what we're calling dynamic segmentation, of understanding, what type of device that is will determine what level of access I get. So this is, as we discuss, your business needs and, really figuring out what level of access, as, my first slide had that 20.8 billion IoT type of devices. What level of access should those devices have to your network, just so that they don't have full reins and, maybe they have vulnerabilities or whatnot. But it also simplifies that you're not statically assigning these ports for a specific use case, that if someone goes in a closet, moves something around, oh no, now I got to open an IT ticket just to change that VLAN. This is an automated process to really streamline that and really cut down on having to manually make those adjustments. Perfect. Thanks for that, Dustin.
Yes, sir.
All right. So the next, Leah, I'll turn this over to you.
Yeah, I mean, this has been amazing information, and we appreciate everybody's participation. And technology is not slowing down, and for you guys to all join this webinar is a positive step for your business and your services and your products. DataVizion, we're going to be having a tech summit this year, May 1st, at Scott Conference Center in Omaha. We'd love for you guys to all join and participate in the event. And we'll be sending a lot more information through email to sign up, even be a participant, and just a great networking opportunity for you all to join. So.
Perfect. Thanks, Lee. Great. And then we do have time for questions, if anybody has any. So the ClearPass Policy Manager product, just to kind of explain, it's we, from a DataVizion implementation standpoint, We really dive in to understand your guys' business needs, as well as your pain points, right? So understanding where either things are lacking, where you want to go. We help you design for the future and give you that visual of that, granular control. And security is huge these days, and this is a huge security aspect to understand what's in there, what's in your network, to control that. So with that, we come in, we help every step of the way, right? So we're not expecting you to provide us. We're here to guide you, and from a as we do these installs on a daily basis, what we see in the industry, from issues and common practices to help secure this down. We're going to work with you to what I do is to help all this lay out. I put together a nice Visio flow chart of what that process looks like, right? So as it's making policy decisions, hey, it's a beast of a product on the back end, but I'm going to simplify that anybody in your company can read that, hey, if I do plug in this device, or if I connect to your wireless network, what happens to me, right? And that helps build out our design, as well as at the end of the day, our documentation as well, to streamline the product. All right.
Great. Thank you so much, Matt. This information was so amazing. And do we have any questions at this point? And if not, please feel free to reach out to us with any questions you might have. And we just really appreciate you guys' participation today. We'll be glad.
Lee, I apologize. I did not have the right window open. There are several questions here that I can go through. So
okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so one of the questions is if you have a Palo Alto Firewall and Palo Alto Panorama, can you have multiple EMM servers? So the answer to that is yes. So with the Palo Alto Firewall integration, we're able to either point at Panorama to update the firewall itself, or you can point to individual firewalls. And then you can have as many EMM, what we call the endpoint contact servers, is how we integrate into those products. And yeah, you can, there's no limit to how many you can have to pull that information in or to send up to your firewalls. Let's see here, one second. Yeah, another great question is that the MAC caching lead to spoofing. So with the endpoint profiler, we're not just grabbing the MAC address, right? So from that DHCP request in an option 55, we're understanding. So if we take a printer, for instance, that printer comes in, hey, it's a Xerox printer. We've got the fingerprint of that. Now, if someone maybe with a Mac or a Linux computer tries to spoof that MAC address, which is easily done, we're going to easily detect a difference. Okay, so oh hey, this printer that we had this fingerprint on is now coming in with this same MAC address, and now it's got, maybe it's got an Intel chipset, and just one little difference. What we can do is we can detect, we flag that as a conflict. So in our policy, up at our top levels, to say if there are any conflicts, I can just deny you from the network right there, or maybe we want to kind of quarantine you or limit your access to the network to maybe just internet only. And we can also send that information up to, we integrate with ServiceNow so that we can be proactive in ticketing. So if you do use ServiceNow, we can automatically generate a ticket of, hey, a conflict was detected. Here is the, you know, if it was a switch, we could tell you exactly what switch, what port. If it's an access point, we could tell you exactly what access point, you know, the time. And using some other software, we could even give you a physical location of where that device was tried to attach to. Yep. And then at the end of this, this is a recorded session, so we will be supplying this video to everybody for review. And we're also happy to go, you know, even further beyond this. If you guys would like to know more information, have us come on site, do you know, more investigation to how ClearPass can benefit you know, your company. We as well as, you know, demos, things like that, we're happy to do so. So this was a very high level type of introduction, but certainly happy to showcase the product a lot more. Another question was, does the colorless port feature work with non-Aruba switch? And that answer is yes. So as we're a multi-vendor product, we integrate very heavily with Cisco and Juniper. And so, you know, things that we're able to pass back. So let's take Cisco, for instance. I can pass back, you know, let's say I plug in an Apple TV. I can say, hey, this is an Apple TV. You go to VLAN 10 or VLAN 20, or I'm a VoIP phone. I, you know, go to this VLAN or that VLAN. Not only can we pass back, you know, what VLAN you go into, but we can also send down a downloadable access control list to that. Okay, so with that, what we, you know, a DACL, downloadable access control list, we can then limit without any configuration on that switch being done. ClearPass, we build that DACL within ClearPass to send down. So, you know, if you just want to do, you know, internet only or IP based, if I can only get to the, you know, talk to these servers, we could do that as well. So working with you guys to understand what you want to limit and what, you know, what VoIP systems need to talk to what, we can send that down, that if someone tries to say, hey, I'm a printer, or hey, I'm a VoIP device, you know, essentially you're not going to get anywhere except what that device needed to talk to. So, and I apologize, Elizabeth, I'm not quite sure how to answer any security concerns. So ClearPass, I mean, is a security appliance to help address common issues. So doing wired and wireless NAC, you know, we're able to limit that down. So I could certainly reach out to you right after this to get more information into you know, a little more of what you're after there. Great. Any other questions or comments? Otherwise, that is our presentation for today.
Matt, Leah, this is Dustin. Thanks for putting this on. Thanks for inviting me to join. And I had a great time with the presentation and answering all the questions.
Thanks for joining, Dustin, and everybody else.
Yep. Thank you, Matt, so much for doing this. And, you know, I just want to applaud everybody for jumping on webinars like this to learn more. That's all you can do. And just keep advancing in the industry. And so if you have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out to us in any way that you would like, whether it be to Matt, myself, marketing at DataVizion, or events at DataVizion. We're happy to help in any way we can to keep advancing the industry. So thank you all so much.
Thanks, Lee.